Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd, fa'a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Sadaqallahul azim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So looking at ayah 82 of Surah Baqarah today, inshallah, which follows on from the previous ayah, which described Jahannam, and this ayah now is describing or referring to Jannah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ الْجَنَّةِ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. Sadaqallahul azim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, but they who believe and do righteous deeds, those are the companions of paradise. They will abide therein eternally. So as I mentioned, this follows from the previous ayah, which was referring to Jahannam, the hellfire, and then immediately is followed by this ayah that refers to Jannah, the place of pleasure and joy, as opposed to the place of pain and destruction. So, classically speaking, in the context of the Bani Israel, this ayah allows those amongst them who follow the righteous path to achieve salvation and Jannah. So it's an invitation to them. It's saying to them, just as in the previous ayah, that those who are going to deny and defy Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, deny and defy the truth, once it's been explained to them, once it's been presented to them and made clear to them, then they are the people who deserve punishment. They've put themselves in for that. However, those who are not like that, those who accept what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has brought, then for those people, and they then follow the righteous path, for those people, they will achieve that salvation, which is Jannah. That's for them amongst the Bani Israel. The ayah also informs us that generally, whoever believed at that time and acted righteous will be rewarded regardless of previous religious background. So this was now opened up not just to the Yahud, to the Bani Israel at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but it's also saying to anybody else, to the Nasara, the Christians, to the Quraysh, to the fire worshippers, to whoever of the other faiths and religions that were around at that time also, that the offer is open to them as well. If they take on board what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has come with, if they accept that and have iman, so they come into the deen properly, believe in the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, risala of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Quran as the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then act upon it and act according to it in their endeavors in life, in their aspirations, then such people, regardless of any previous background, they have the same opportunity of Jannah as the Bani Israel. So it was an invitation and, in effect, good news for all, that this is now an open invitation, and regardless of your background, no need to be concerned, no need to feel any less than the next person, that, oh, this is only for the Bani Israel, or we can't make it because of some other reason. No, the invitation is open to everyone, just as the punishment is open to everyone who refuses after seeing clearly what the deen is about. So the invitation to Jannah and the promise and the reward of Jannah is open to those who take that time, use their wisdom, use their aql, and take on board the righteous deen, the truth. So how does that now apply to us? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ الْجَنَّةِ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. Sadaqallahul azim. But they who believe and do righteous deeds, those are the companions of paradise. They will abide therein eternally. So, throughout the Quran, wherever Allah Ta'ala mentions Jahannam, He always follows up with the mention of Jannah. So it's kind of giving hope. Now, in this ayah, its original approach being for the Bani Israel and for the people at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Being now enshrined in the Quran means it's now open for all people, all time, whoever come upon this ayah or ayahs like it. So the invitation of Jannah is now open to the whole of mankind, and that in the wake of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam being a mercy, rahmatun lil alameen, because it came for all people, not any one nation, any one crowd, any one race, but for all people, for towards the end of time. So the context of the ayah, as I say, was for the Bani Israel and for the people at that time, but it then comes out to the rest of the world for the rest of the time that the Quran is in this world. So having said that, within this ayah is also the next point I want to raise, how it always follows any ayah in the Quran that speaks of Jahannam always is followed with the ayah that speaks of Jannah. This is a common occurrence throughout the Quran. You will always find wherever one is spoken of, the other is spoken of. Jahannam is always followed with the speech of reference to Jannah itself. Now, why would that happen? Well, it basically gives hope. So whenever there's the threat of punishment to people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always follows up and say that if you will do such and such, if you will deny and defy, then you will face the punishment of hell, the punishment of Allah's God. However, and this is where the hope comes in, they never leaves them on their own. He then follows up by saying to them that if you follow what is said, if you understand, believe, accept, and devote your lives to that, then you have the reward. So it's an open field, whichever way you want to go. If you want to, of your own choice, choose to deny and defy, then you have chosen the path of Jahannam. But if you decide to use your aql, your intelligence, your wisdom, your understanding, your insight and foresight, then you will have Jannah. And this is entirely down to the person. So people are either motivated through fear of loss or harm, or promise of joy or benefit. How is this? Well, basically there's two types of people in the world. Either there are people who are motivated to do things in life because of threat, because of the fear of loss or harm, that they have to be then pushed into doing things in this manner, that if you don't do this, then this will happen, this will be the consequences, this will be the punishment, this will be the loss for you. So then they get up and they do what they need to do because of the threat of harm or loss. On the other hand, there's another group of people, which is the people who don't work on threats, but work on reward, work on positivity. So that's the other type. And if you look at any school structure, any school classroom situation, you will find that both these things are always in place. There's always the punishment for some children. However, other children will not work like that. Will simply be children who are constantly gaining stars or points or whatever it is, and praise from the teacher. And the class tends to generally fall into those two types of people, those two types of students. The students that are constantly misbehaving and the teacher is constantly warning them, threatening them, and so on. Or there's the other type who are always looking for rewards, and they will do their best, and they can be incited, and they can be motivated by giving the reward, that if you do this, this is the reward for today, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get this many points, or this reward, or this presentation, whatever it is that the school is using. So they work on that. So this is how generally humankind is. And it's interesting to see that, therefore, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does in the Quran. He always mentioned the Jahannam and he mentions the Jannah. And in actual fact, what is really happening here is that, in actual fact, in this context, the previous ayah can also be a motivation to avoid or change bad acts and reform so as to avoid the harm. So what I mean by that is the previous ayah in the last lesson, which was talking about Jahannam and the punishment of Jahannam for refusal and denial and defile. But having said that, it is also because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He is merciful. So though he's talking about Jahannam, though he's talking about and referring to this immense, incredible place of torment, he's not doing it in a manner where he wants people to go in there. He's doing it in a manner to frighten people into submission, frighten people into becoming people of Iman, and therefore frighten them from Jahannam into Jannah. So it's quite a it's quite a merciful and heartwarming thing to do, really, because through his threat, he's preventing people from doing the wrong, because he knows people work on threats. And so those people will, because of the fear of the threat, the fear of harm, they will actually go towards the good and stay established on the good because of the fear of the threat. And as a result of that, they will end up in Jannah. They will end up with the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that previous ayah in the last lesson is actually also an invitation to Jannah. And this ayah, which is directly talking about Jannah, is an invitation to Jannah in that direct sense. So both ayat are of mercy and are of goodness. So it depends on which group a person is in. If he is the type who's motivated through threat, then he or she will be motivated by the warnings of Jahannam, and they will reform themselves. And plenty of people do that. Plenty of people who are in crime and sin themselves, when they hear about the punishments in Islam, about the Jahannam, and they like to actually hear about that. And what it does is it moves them, and they give things up, and they reform themselves. And plenty of people have done that in their lives as a result of reading about hellfire, reading about the grave and the punishments there, or the day of judgment, and they reform themselves. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to that group in that way. And then there's people who don't need that. They don't need to go anywhere near there. You don't need to describe those things to them. They are content with the beauty and glory and the joy of Jannah. They want to hear about the good things there. They want to hear about that, and that makes them aspire towards Jannah and aspire towards good deeds to get to Jannah. Now, in this ayah, normally, in many places in the Quran, Jannah is mentioned with some detail. There will always be some mention of rivers or gardens or something like that of Jannah is mentioned within the ayah that refers to Jannah. This ayah doesn't do that. It simply says that there will be people who go to this place called Jannah, finish, that's it. Right? It doesn't actually give the details of Jannah. So Jannah is mentioned without any usual descriptions, implying it will be whatever you wish from Allah Ta'ala. So by not describing anything, by leaving that out, but just referring to this place, then it's kind of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is now focusing on those people who aspire with rewards. He's focusing on that, and he's drawing that out. Is drawing that out by not describing it, leaving it to their imagination, because whatever they wish, whatever they want, whatever they aspire to, they can imagine that, and they've been told whatever you want, it will be there for you. Then because every person's Jannah becomes personal. It becomes personal to each and every single man or woman who wants to get to Jannah. And it's whatever he or she wants. It's whatever he or she has always wanted or fantasied for or desired in their lives, and knew they could never have it in this world, but they know they can have it in Jannah. And so whatever it is, whatever drives you, whatever motivates you, it's that Jannah means to that person. And so that person moves in the right direction. That person is motivated now to do good, to pray, to fast, to read Quran, to whatever it is that they need to do to get to Jannah in their lives, or to give up whatever they need to go of bad things to get to Jannah. They will do it because now it's personal. It's whatever they want it to be. That's what Jannah will be. So by leaving it without its description, without mentioning rivers and whatever else, it's allowing the person to do just that, to enter the world of their own imagination, of their own wildest desires, greatest desires, deepest desires, and know that that is going to be what they will have. And what better motivation can there be for a person than to give them whatever they want and tell them sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. Whatever you want. And of course the promise of Allah that no heart can imagine. So it's beyond that. It'll be beyond that. So this could, if people truly focus on this, drive a person to a kind of a ecstasy, a kind of craze to get to Jannah, which is good. if that is what is going to take you and motivate you to do righteousness in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It could also imply that the focus is on getting there, and that being done by achieving the pleasure of Allah Ta'ala. Because now what happens is that once we've got this craze, we've got this desire, because now Jannah is going to be whatever I want it to be, then it's a case of, okay, in order to have all of that, put it aside and focus on what's going to get you there. And that is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then the person then dedicates themselves to whatever it is. You go and you learn what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Well, two things, two types of them. One, avoiding or giving up what displeases him. Okay, that's the first thing. An entire talk or topic of discussion is there, but to give up on things that you're doing that you know are taking you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is causing his displeasure, his anger, his ghadab. So you give those things up in your life. And if you do that, if a person just gets away from disobedience, the rest is obedience. The rest is only obedience. So the person does that. Or on the other hand, if the person is one who by Allah's grace is not committing any major sins, but is more or less largely involved in good works, then they'll redouble their efforts. They'll say, this is what it's going to take, then I'm going to put my all into it. You know, it's been ticking over. I've not been giving it much attention, but I realize now this is what's going to do. And they redouble their efforts. They become more motivated, more enthused for doing that thing. So whether it's charity work, fasting, prayer, Quran, whatever it is, it's seeking knowledge, becoming sheikh, scholar, whatever it is that is needed in their lives, or whatever they're already doing, they will redouble their efforts and they will try to gain a greater pleasure from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing that at the end of this road lies the Jannah that is personal to their imagination. However, in essence, the believer should not necessarily focus on gaining the entry to Jannah. Rather, he should be focused on pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pleasing his Lord. The entrance to Jannah will happen automatically. It will come, because what is there with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala but Jannah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the Jannah for those who please him. It is going to be the consequence, the end result, the reward for those who do please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when you please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what's he going to do? He's got to reward you with something which he has promised you with, and that is Jannah. So you're guaranteeing your Jannah, but instead of focusing on the Jannah, you focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's not to say that, I mean, there are plenty of people who actually will work on just that motivation of Jannah. It will be this and this and this, and that's enough. That's enough for some people. That's enough for some people, perhaps most people. That's enough. But if you go higher than that, if you look at people who are of a deeper sense of Iman, the people of Taqwa, the people of Ihsan, the people at a high level, they don't look at the Jannah. They leave that to Allah Ta'ala, because there is this deeper level, spiritually speaking, of being a Muslim, because being a Muslim means to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala meaning you give up your life, your whatever your goals are, for whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants them to be. So you become Allah Ta'ala. You hand yourself over. You give up yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the sense that you say, instead of, rather, when people wake up in the morning, I wonder what I'm going to do today. I wonder what I need to do today. I wonder how much I can get done today. I wonder what's going to be in my day today. So there are people who wake up like that, and then there are these type of people who will wake up and they will wonder to themselves, I wonder what Allah wants to do with me today. I wonder where he's going to take me today. I wonder what he's going to present to me today. I wonder what he's going to make me feel today. I wonder what he's going to present to me today. So they'll be like that. And so that is the higher maqam, the higher station. And for such people, they don't think about Jannah. They don't think about Jahannam either. They don't think about either. The idea of Jannah and the idea of Jahannam it's there in their mind. They know these places exist, and they know that they very much easily could go into one or the other. That's known. It's not that that's negated, no. But they instead submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in such a manner, to such an extent, that what they've done is they've aligned themselves with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They've made that connection that I want to just focus on you, Ya Allah, and let me just think and learn and know and act upon what is good for you. Then whatever you wish to give me, I submit to that too. I submit myself to you, and I submit to whatever you want to give me, whatever reward you want to give me. And when a person does that, you see, instead of asking for things, but totally giving all that up, and totally being just focused on Allah without any thought of Jannah, that is a higher maqam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more pleased with the servant who is like that. And that is the maqam of the greater people, such as the awliya, the saints, the prophets, and they have that place with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah ta'ala then decides what He wants to give. And again, coming to that, what He wants to give is to say, Ya Allah, I don't want what I want what you want. So this is, as I say, the spiritual level of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is so much greater than the normal basic level of submission, which is that a person will pray and fast, and he or she will do these things because they submit to Allah Ta'ala in the sense that we will do what we are told to do. But the one who's at a greater spiritual level is not looking at it that way. He or she has given themselves over to Allah Ta'ala. So don't see it as something I have to do or been told to do. They look at it as, this is what pleases Allah. This is what pleases my Lord, my Creator. So let me apply myself to that, but more so, let me apply myself to it willingly, freely, and more so. So they will do the extra mile, and they will do the extra efforts, and they will do it happily. And yes, there will be some things that come to them that might be more testing and trying than other things. But so long as they understand that this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decree, it is from His wisdom, and I don't fully understand it, and therefore I'm feeling a little troubled or concerned about it, then they will accept this. They will say, this is my nafs. My nafs is concerned. My nafs is feeling perturbed or troubled by this. But at my heart and at my soul, Ya Allah, this is from you. There is great wisdom in what you do, in everything you do. And so do with me as you wish, and I will accept it all. And if we look at the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in time and time again, there are examples of this, but I'll give you just one from the account of the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which was when he came back from Taif. Now, he went to Taif to preach to these people, and they stoned him. They got the youth to stone him, and some of the riwayat make it very difficult that he was stoned for a long time, a long distance. And when he comes out of Taif and he comes back to Makkah, he stops outside of Makkah, because remember, he was out of the city, and he stops outside and he makes this dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he doesn't know what his treatment is going to be inside the city, how he's actually even going to get back inside the city. So he makes this dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, consider what's happened to him, all the events that have been happening to him so far, all the tragedies. He was out, driven out into the desert for 3 years. His wife Khadija radiallahu anha, she dies. His uncle Abu Talib also dies. He goes to Taif and he's stoned. So it's incredibly down, the situation in his life, and yet at the same time he's making this dua, and he's saying to Allah Ta'ala about all of this, and he's not complaining, but he's saying, Ya Allah, all these things that are happening to me and my state that it is, so long as you are not displeased with me, I do not mind. So long as you are not displeased with me. That all this is that happening, if it's from your ghadab, then it concerns me. I've done something wrong. But if it's not from your ghadab, if this is from your wisdom, there is something in this for me, then I'm happy with whatever you want. I'm yours. I belong to you. I submit. And you created me. I did not exist, but that you created me. So whatever I have, whatever I don't have, whatever you give, whatever you don't give, whatever you withhold, whatever you present is from your wisdom, then that is the best for me. But only so long as you are not angry with me. That's all that concerned Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It didn't concern him what the people in Taif did. It didn't concern him that the Quraysh, what they did, and made the pact and pushed him and the believers into the desert for 3 years. They had to eat roots of trees. It didn't concern all these things. Or he could have made dua for these things. But he makes dua to Allah that so long as you are not displeased with him, that all these things have happened from your wisdom. Subhanallah. No, this is true ultimate submission that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is giving an example of. So that's the essence of a believer, that he or she is focused on their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their ability to please him, and Jannah comes. Jannah comes because it's his reward. But then Jannah is filled with what Allah wants for you. And so even in this instance where we're given to choose, wish for what you will, and you will have it in Jannah. This is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have this in the teachings of the deen. You may wish for what you want, and you will have it in Jannah when you get there. But the believer at this level of spirituality is such that he or she is submitting even that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, in that case, where are we? If you think about it, I mean, just as reflection on hellfire is good for the soul, so is reflection on Jannah, and as a measure of the pleasure of Allah Ta'ala. So the Jannah that you receive is a measure of Allah Ta'ala's being pleased with you. So we leave it to him. I mean, we can all think of what we want in Jannah, but if we leave that to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, he who created us knows us best, will give us what we don't know for ourselves to be the best. And that will be the best because it's from our Creator who knows us thoroughly inside out. So this is the sort of thing that a believer should reflect upon. And even at a basic level, if a person wants to reflect upon Jannah and what they're going to have in Jannah and the kind of things they missed out on in this world or believe they can have in Jannah, that is sufficient. That is sufficient in itself, to so long as it makes you on the path of righteousness and it keeps you in good stead with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are practicing, you are believing, you are committing yourself to good deeds. That's fine, because in the community, in the human society, so long as any and every person is keeping their harm from reaching anyone else, that will be a very peaceful community. That will be a very thriving community. That will be a community with blessings and barakah, because no one is harming anyone. So long as everyone is not harming anyone else, that's a peaceful community. That's a wonderful community. So if reflection upon Jannah at the basic level keeps a person in good stead, keeps them from harming anyone because they know that they're going to have goodness, great goodness coming, then that's sufficient. That's sufficient. And that is the idea of how the self-fulfilling prophecy we're often told about, where if teachers or parents or peers even will blame someone or call somebody something or tell that person that you're this or you're that, then in time that person may become like that. So it's always important not to give bad names and bad labels to people, because they end up becoming like that simply because you've told them time and time again, and so they give up on trying to be good. Whereas this idea of Jannah and whatever that person wants, and let's say when it becomes personal, if that person who is in a bad situation or is sinning, but then has this understanding that Jannah will be whatever you want, all the good that you want, everything that you wanted to go right in your life, which didn't, will go right for you in Jannah. Everything you want and you didn't have, you will have in Jannah. And if he understands that, she understands that, then it gives them hope. And when it gives them hope, then it gives them that same sense of duty as to any other person, and that is, don't do bad. You want to get to Jannah, you want all of this, then do good. So they end up doing good. They end up doing good because now, even though people around them may not have given them that hope, within the deen they found that hope, and so that self-fulfilling prophecy won't take place. Because they understand within themselves, I'm going to a greater place, a grand place, and it's everything I want. And so let me just be good. And if they will be like that, then their harm, because they're the criminal elements in society and they cause harm, if their harm can be trapped and stopped, nipped in the bud, prevented, then the society will become overnight an incredibly peaceful, harmonious society. So that's the good news for people at a basic level. If we now go back to, as I say, the spiritual level, and the person who is at a deeper spiritual level, and the person who is at that deeper spiritual level is giving themselves up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then their reflection on Jannah will be actually a reflection upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pleasing Him and anticipating, what will Allah Ta'ala give me? If I give up on my own thoughts and wishes for Jannah and I leave it with Him, I wonder what He will give me. And that takes you even beyond the idea of Jannah having everything beyond your wildest dreams. Because now what Allah can give you, well, Allah is the one who gives you your wildest dreams. So if Allah is giving you your wildest dreams, and a person is absolutely in a craze, if he receives his wildest dreams, then the being who gives you your wildest dreams is going to give you such joy, such goodness, such rapture of goodness, that you will never, ever be in need again. So that's the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if a person reflects upon this, then this is truly good news. And no matter what situation we're in, what pains, what troubles, what tribulations, what depressions, what anxieties, what headaches and heartaches and so on, heartbreaks that we have in this dunya, if we can just connect with that understanding, if we can just spend some time every day, just 5 minutes, closing our eyes and reflecting that my Jannah would be like this, and it's personal to me, and it's going to have this and this and this, whatever I wanted, then that's sufficient. That will give people hope. And if they are at a deeper level of spirituality, and they just imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment being pleased with and looking forward to meeting you, what great joy can there be than that your Creator is looking forward to meeting you? For Allah Ta'ala said, those who love to meet me, I love to meet them. And you love to meet Allah because you've done so much for Him. You've submitted to Him, and you've done everything in your life to the best of your ability for Him. Then this will lift that person out of their anxiety, depression, concern, and so on, the fitan of this dunya that brings to us and weighs upon our shoulders. And maybe this is how many of the prophets, the awliya, etc., how they feel, because they have this reflection that nothing in the dunya measures with what is in Jannah. So things of the dunya that are good, but they won't sway them, because they are looking at something far greater. Because sometimes the good things of this dunya can sway us and cause us to compromise in our principles and in our practice of deen. So, you know, especially in relationships, when you love someone, then that someone who you love can often cause you to compromise your ideals by asking for something, and in a manner that, you know, you feel obliged to give because you love them. But at the same time, you compromise on something of your principles in Islam, in the deen. So if a person reflects upon Jannah deeply, then that won't happen, because they will not feel the fear or concern that if I don't do this to please this person, I might lose this person, and I don't want to lose this person. Well, if they look upon Jannah and the pleasure of Allah Ta'ala, then not only will they be then doing what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and looking to that higher cause and not be diverted by anything or anyone in the dunya, but they also know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as a result of that, will help them. And the fitna that may have occurred between that person and the person they love because of the compromising, and they're refusing to compromise, will be taken care of by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will calm their hearts, and they understand, and they say, it's okay, I know if you're doing this to please Allah ta'ala, and I don't want to do anything to compromise that for you. They will actually say that on their tongue. So this is something that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps people with. So reflection upon Jannah, reflection upon pleasing Allah Ta'ala at a deeper level of spirituality, and either way we can lift ourselves up from the demoralizing, chaotic, depressing state of this dunya and our lives in this dunya, and maintain some kind of confidence in our akhirah, and therefore confidence in this dunya. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq to understand and to benefit from all of this. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.